Hollywood has been in a collective state of shell shock ever since Trump's overwhelming victory over their candidate Kamala Harris, to the point where every third story in the Hollywood trades is about the election and Trump's cabinet picks, something they've never covered before. You have reports about stars leaving America because of Trump, sometimes followed with the counter-message that no, they actually moved because LA isn't quite what it once was, to reports that Disney are scrambling to find a conservative voice for The View. For Disney, the election result doubly reinforced the lessons from Inside Out 2, where the wokeness was cut, and Deadpool and Wolverine, which was never woke at all, and those became the biggest and second biggest movies of the year, thus saving Iger's ass at the earnings call. But is Hollywood in general, and Disney in particular, willing to change, or are they just feigning wanting to get back on the same page as the audience, before reverting to the ESG-driven programming their institutional owners like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street have been wanting them to push these last few years? And make no mistake about it, what Disney does here will set the stage for the rest of Hollywood, as even Deadline Hollywood stated in their story covering the recent Rachel Zegler debacle. So, will the Trump 2.0 administration really change anything? Let's find out. In a recent livestream, we had a great discussion about this very topic with our good friend and renowned Disney scooper WDW Pro. Normally, clips from livestreams go up on Midnight's Edge live archives, but this discussion deserves a full video treatment. Let's watch.
So Disney is multifaceted. At the top of the leadership, you've got Bob Iger, who had political aspirations and no longer does. He likely just wants to maximize now his fortunes on the way out. Yeah. And the way to do that is to get Disney out of all of this political controversy and to maximize your profits as best you can. Now, do I think that Dana Walden underneath him who is best friends with Kamala Harris? Do I think she's suddenly seen the light? Of course not. Do I think that the other execs under Iger have suddenly turned tail and switched ideologies? No. I think that right now what they're doing is they're deciding that they're not going to be forthrightly, outrightly partisan. Mm-hmm. They still will be internally, and they're going to have to figure out a way to curtail the efforts of their creatives who have been turned into a venomous hive of ideologically captured nut jobs. So how do you hold them in bounds? That's what they're going to try to figure out over the next 6 months.
Fences.
Okay. Yeah, well, that'll work. Okay, so I have a question for both Andre and Pro, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you guys. Do you think that because of the new administration, they know they have to pivot, and their masters up at BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and everybody else are knowing they need to pivot and use their captured boards on all these Fortune 500 companies to redirect out of ESG, DEI, bridge, and the other things that are going to basically put them at odds with the government?
I want to hear what Andre has to say first, because I'm gonna do the rare thing of getting a little political on that answer. Andre, go ahead.
Sure. I think there's a couple of aspects to consider there. I think that, beginning with the politics, Trump winning the popular vote, I think that let Disney know, even those that were in denial about it, that, oh shit, we do not have the populace with us on this. I do not think that they saw it coming. I think that's a huge shock to the system right there. So that's now a reason to abandon all things ESG and stuff like that purely for the commercial interests of it. But then, of course, you have all of the people who forced them to do this the whole time. Your BlackRock, your State Streets, your Vanguard, stuff like that. They have even been forced to walk back some of the branding, like they no longer use the term ESG. They haven't stopped the practices, but they have stopped using the terms because they are so toxic. Plus, you have now a bunch of data showing that it really isn't good for business. And even the initial McKinsey report that said that no, diversity is good for business has been widely discredited. So the entire movement was started basically on lies and bullcrap. So that, of course, is a big issue against it. But that is not going to stop them because they have their own ulterior motives. That is not over yet. But I do believe that they are on the outs. They're not done yet. But things aren't looking great because assuming that the new administration can do what they set about doing, that means that even those nefarious forces that have been pushing this whole agenda are in deep shit. They are suddenly going to be under a legislative pressure and scrutiny that they have never, ever been before in their multi-century history. Have they ever been subjected to anything that they may be subjected to in the next few years here? How will they deal with that? I don't know. I cannot predict things. But let us just assume that this administration, this incoming administration, does what it says it's supposed to do. And it can do that without hindrance. That's the end for the entire ESG regime and agenda. It's gone.
Wait a minute. You mean that
it's going to be if the things work out?
But the thing, so what you're saying, Andre, and let me have you clarify, is what Klaus Schwab was worried about is happening?
I believe it was that other guy, this UV Havel. I've never been able to remember his name, but that guy, yeah. I think that when he expressed those concerns.
Are you concerned that Trump might be elected again?
I think it's very likely. And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow to what remains of the global order. And he says it openly.
That was very, very real. And if Team Trump is able to do what they said they were going to do, then this whole ESG agenda is going to disappear. And I do believe that companies like Disney do see that writing on the wall. So unless there is some kind of black swan event coming in the next few years or months, they better get on the winning team right away. And I hear this from several places now, even from some of the people I know in finance, that the people that were on Team Schwab, they're terrified right now because they didn't see this coming and they don't know quite what to do. Whereas people I know in business, and even some people I've spoken to in Hollwyood, they're actually pretty excited about the possibilities that are with this admin here. So that's my thinking here, is that Disney are just seeing the winds of change, and they are just trying to pivot to where it's going to be most beneficial for them in the future. And barring a black swan event, that is to get off the team where they have been on. That's my thoughts on the situation. Pro, I would love to hear what you've heard and what you're reading, given your much closer ties to Disney than what I have.
All right, so this is going to require me to get into politics a little bit. So apologies, folks, if you don't like me doing that, but I've got to explain this. What we're witnessing with Donald Trump and this new presidency is something that we have not seen ever before. We have a former president who had 4 years off to consider exactly how to do this if he had the chance again. When you have a president who comes in for 4 years, almost always they come in with a fresh outlook and a bit of naivete. They don't know exactly how the system works, even if they've been the vice president before. And they come
Can I stop you for 1 second there? I would just want to recommend people find and watch the very first episode of Yes, Minister, which is a fantastic British series where you have a young, idealistic politician who has been voted in, and now he has now become a minister. He wants to serve the people and the constituents, and he is immediately crushed and controlled and tamed by the deep state. That's what that series is about. So just to see, this is the point was, that's what any fresh president who hasn't done this before, this is what they face. They have all these ideals, then they meet the bureaucracy that's there. Sorry, I just want to make that point. Carry on.
So, for example, when Trump was first elected in 2016, one of the first things that happened was that his lead general, Mike Flynn, I think at that time he was going to be the leader of defense in some way. I don't remember exactly which advisory role he was going to take. He may have been Secretary of Defense. But Flynn, he goes in and he kind of gets trapped by the FBI. And at the same time that he's being caught and entrapped by the FBI, and maybe by legitimate, maybe by illegitimate, we'll let people out there decide. At the same time that's happening, the head of the FBI at the time goes to Trump and meets him in a tower and secretly records him and feeds him false information, and then leaves that meeting and leaks that to the press. From the very get-go, Trump was facing an entirely hostile environment that believed that he was a novice. He'd only been to D.C. 7 times in his life, never stayed at night, didn't know how it worked, and they were going to take care of that. He was surprisingly the president, but they were going to make sure that he was not a resident of the White House for long. Okay. Well, going through that will make you a very wise person as how to avoid it again. But even with presidents that don't face pushback, by the time they get to their second term, they have so many controversies and so much baggage that they cannot do what they can do in the first 100 days of their presidency. Now, Donald Trump is returning with the full picture, the full spectrum of knowledge about how all of this works, and he's getting a do-over with the same power that a president walked into in the first 100 days. So he will have all of that political cachet. At the same time, for reasons that we won't get into because it would take too long, he has just about as much power as you've seen a president have since FDR coming into this. And there are 2 signs that Disney and other entertainment companies are, and well, the entire economy is looking at, and that's making them raise their eyebrows. The first is going to be the Matt Gaetz pick for Attorney General. Mm-hmm. The question then is, can he get that across the line? Because establishment Washington hates this, and they will do anything in their power to stop it. But they're beginning to realize that Trump, after that first term, he's coming to the second term with a different way of approaching it. And that is, Trump may be willing to use every presidential power at his disposal. You'll recall in the first term that he refused to use his presidential powers, for example, to stop the riots in that post-pandemic or in intra-pandemic year. There were riots all over the country, and he elected not to use the presidential powers to put those down. People may have thought, well, he'll come back in and he'll act the same way. That doesn't seem to be the case. And so, it's already been leaking out that, okay, if you oppose Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General, and I'm not here to tell you what you should think about Matt Gaetz, but if you oppose him, then Trump will actually recess Congress on his own and do it. Well, that's a whole new world for these senators, and all of them think that they're presidential material. And now they're looking at this guy who says, okay, well, you're going to do advise and consent, and if you don't, I'm going to recess you and I'm going to appoint it. And they're like, well, that doesn't happen. That's outside of the, that's outside of the decorum. And he's basically saying, I don't care. It's in the book. I've got the power. I'm breaking decorum if I have to. The second thing is the RFK pick. It really, really matters. Mm-hmm. RFK as the head of Health and Human Services matters because of this. Huge, vast amounts of money have been pouring into the corporation coffers from the pharmaceutical companies because the pharmaceutical companies are buying up massive advertisements and advertising buys on the networks and subsidizing a lot of these shows that have no ratings. Culture?
What fell today on the market this morning?
Pharmaceuticals, I'm going to assume, based on...
yeah, and tech. Yeah. Big tech.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, okay. So here's the thing. Let's say you're Disney. You're going up against a guy now who's acting like he's going to use every power in the quiver. Like he's not going to hold back anymore. Okay? And
the stocks fell faster than Mary Jo Kopechne sinking. And never mind.
Wow. That is a cut.
And it's dark.
1952 called and wants
good gravy.
So we will know, by the way, we will know if Trump is willing to go all out, because presidents have the most power they're ever going to have in the first 100 days. If he actually gets Matt Gaetz in as Attorney General, if he just says, that's it, I'm using my powers, he's going to be the Attorney General, then you'll know that this is Trump 2.0 and he's a different beast. You'll also know, though, if RFK comes in and if combined the administration says, no more medicine ads. That's over. Doctors prescribe medicines. Customers don't choose them. And so there's no more advertising of that. You'll know if the administration comes out and starts charging the wazoo out of these companies for having network licenses.
You know what, Pro, I would be happy if the administration forced the pharmaceutical companies to use a logo color other than purple or lime green.
Yes, and we have to slow down the size.
That is the biggest of our problems.
I think
I agree.
I think if you've ever taken $1 from a pharmaceutical company as a doctor or an anesthesiologist or anything, you've taken $1 from any pharmaceutical company, you have to wear a patch on your coat that tells you who's
like a race car driver.
Well, I just
at the very
hope
least
that
they should.
I just hope that the disinformation campaign gets toned down. I'm not an American. I'm not involved in your politics, but I absolutely have seen JFK Jr. on camera say he's not an anti-vaxxer. Yet on the left, that's all they've said. But
Right.
I actually saw a video of him saying actually that.
Right.
So, I mean,
So-
that's why X is so important right now, Paul, is because you're talking about exactly the problem I run into every damn time I talk to my dad. All he sees and all he hears is the media,
Mhm.
right? He doesn't hear and see the actual truth.
Yeah,
And that's what I said is I can't believe that more people didn't lose faith in the media than we have already. Well, at least we know about 75% of the folks in America have said, you know what, the media is full of shit. And I'm glad we finally have gotten back to that point, right? Because we used to think that way back in the day. We never trusted the media wholeheartedly, but that was also at a time before the 24-hour news cycle. The 24-hour news cycle came in and we sucked it up like it was complete, and utter truth.
Well,
It's
we
like,
got
we should have been
addicted
questioning
to
this
it.
shit. Yeah, exactly. We should have been questioning this shit even more and more and more. It's like we have gotten so far and forgot how big a piece of shit that most of the journalists and media are out there, right? Like for the longest time, they have been held up on this pedestal. Like there's some great and gracious thing. It's like, yes, the freedom of the press is great. Getting the truth is out there. But the problem is most of these journalists nowadays don't give a fuck about the truth. They only give a fuck about their own bias. They're even more worse than like back in the days of Hearst, if you ask me in some
That's actually
respects.
true. Yeah, that actually
Because
true.
at least they had some more fucking dignity back then. The most they were trying to do was just sell some goddamn papers. Here they're actually taking, political sides and shit. It's just insane. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to go off about it, but I've just had this realization, especially as somebody who's part of the new media, where it's like we've gotten so far away from the idea and forgotten how big a piece of shit the media is. Right. Like, cause and this is kind of a roundabout way I got to this. Like Billy Baldwin was out there talking shit the other day. And I said, how does it feel to be the worst Baldwin, even though one of you's killed somebody? You want to know why I said that? It's because at least Alec Baldwin's kicked the shit out of a few journalists in his lifetime.
So, Tom, I think you make great points. And the drive-bys, right, the legacy media, part of what they do is they work on the cartoonification of opposing views. So just like what Chato was saying, the easy way to dismiss RFK is to say, well, he's anti-vax. And what that does is then it crystallizes that into something that can be completely binary, black and white, when in reality, he's definitely pro-vaccine. I mean, there aren't many people out there who say, well, we'd like to have measles and mumps ravage the nation again. At the same time, you can't help but notice there's a lot more stuff going into being injected into your children, and that your ability to say, hey, I'd like to know what it is that we're injecting into my child seems to be off the table. And all you have to do is put that into new words for people to go, that sounds rather dystopian that the state is going to inject my child and won't tell me what they're putting in them. Like, I think I should know that. I think that's appropriate. I would like to know that and make some decisions. And I'm sorry if you believe that I'm a stupid plebe who is not qualified to understand the words coming out of your mouth in regards to what's going into the kid, but it's still my kid. Even if I made them in a stupor one time, they're still my kid, and I'm not necessarily stupid. So here's what the media, here's what entertainment and the rest of the corporations are watching for. They're looking to see, what does Trump do in his first 100 days? Because that will set the bar. Is he a doofus who goes too far and blows all of his political cachet right off the bat? Or Is he someone who is absolutely on a mission to completely transform the nation this time? Is he bringing all of that gained wisdom, and this time he knows exactly how to do it, and he hits the ground running, and within 2 minutes of being inaugurated, the government is being transformed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and Gabbard's coming in there. All of these, if that happens, if within like 2 or 3 minutes of inauguration and the first 100 days, they can't keep up with all that's happening, they want to be ahead of that. They don't want to fight that. If, on the other hand, he comes in and, they think they can get the upper hand on him, well, we'll be back to TDS all over again.